So the primary mission of ACEP is to advance emergency care. And it's a really good and poignant question because at surface value, it seems like a very kind of just straightforward question. But when you think about defining emergency care, that's really all encompassing. It's really broad. It's outside of just advocacy for emergency physicians. It certainly encompasses care throughout the land, various geographic regions and the like, and even outside of the emergency department. When you say emergency care, really you're talking about EMS, pre-hospital care, community care, and the like. And so that is the mission of ACEP, and has been now for its 50 years, right, of existence, and hasn't been actually, from what I know, it has not been revised, the mission statement, despite obviously how we've evolved as a country and a specialty and the like, but that is the current mission statement. Well, I guess I elaborated on it already to some degree. I like the fact that it's broad. I like the fact that it allows the college to play an integral role outside of just the emergency department and relative to emergency physicians. I like the fact that it takes into account patients and patient care, and the importance of providing quality patient care. And I like the fact that it puts us in the driver's seat, if you will, in a lot of ways in terms of our specialty of emergency medicine, but also emergency care. It's funny, I just got off the phone with Greg Henry from Michigan, who I'm sure you guys know, he told me today that his, if he were to speak at ACEP this year, 2020, it'll be his 42nd meeting, which not sure if we're going to meet in person this year or not, but I bring up Greg just to say that leadership within ACEP is a bit of an acculturation process, in that you're kind of born into it in many ways. You're raised into ACEP leadership. I think when you are raised into ACEP leadership, I think it really equips you well with the tools to thrive in that capacity. So for me, I was EMRA president, and as EMRA president, you're very tightly knit with ACEP board. And so from years back, 2005, I've been really involved with the executive level work and leadership of ACEP through EMRA and the like, and it continued. And so I think that exposure is really important, actually, in terms of understanding not just the mission of the organization, but also the relationships that are important for the organization to thrive and to make those relationships and connections over the years. I think mentorship is so important to have to be a great leader for ACEP, and you can only really work on developing that mentorship relationship over the years. And so a great ACEP leader is in love with organized medicine, because clearly this is volunteer work, no doubt about it. It's volunteer work, but we love it very much. And it takes a special person to actually want to sit through really long board meetings and go through really tedious, oftentimes complex issues, but understanding, the greater good for the entire specialty and really taking pride in that job. So I guess one big characteristic of a good leader for ACEP requires exposure to the culture, I think, of organized medicine and specific to ACEP. That's one characteristic that's important. I don't. I'm actually very pleased with where we are on the board. I appreciate that we've been very intentional about making sure that the composition of the board accurately reflects the entire college and is diverse in terms of skill set and in terms of practice models and in terms of backgrounds, et cetera. We're actually quite diverse in that way. The leadership is phenomenal. Our incoming president, Dr. Rosenberg, I have no doubt is going to do a phenomenal job. So, yeah, I think that having just chosen a new executive director is really exciting. And so, as you all know, I'm sure, Ms. Sue Sidori is our new executive director. And I think that under her leadership, which is really exciting in terms of her experience relative to technology, as well as registries, really forward thinking in terms of her leadership. And she has a great track record in that regard that I think we're really set to excel into the future by way of the board and the staff. You know, it's interesting. I think there are a lot of potential threats. There are a lot of potential threats, really, to our specialty when you think about burnout and membership numbers and the like. But in my mind, we can't even have a conversation about membership or about preventing burnout if we're not able to perform our job in the first place. So I would say that I'm most concerned about the finances of emergency medicine relative to out-of-network and surprise billing, for example. We still really have to tackle that and get that under control. And I think now more than ever, it's just so imperative, given that we're seeing many emergency departments across the country, a 50% reduction in their volumes during COVID-19. We also know that through CMS, there are penalties looming if certain quality metrics are not met, up to like 9% starting this year, 2020, that now more than ever, it's really important that we have solid footing relative to our ability to practice. We know that the out-of-network and surprise billing situation could, in some estimations, result in up to 40% reduction in terms of reimbursement in emergency departments across the country. So it's a really big deal. And I think we've done a really good job so far of being very diligent, working hard really for the past 3 years on the out-of-network surprise billing issue. And we've been able to contribute to the language of legislation to take emergency medicine into account and our patients into account and our profession into account, such that the most recent legislation from the House Ways and Means Committee is actually pretty good. There's still some tweaks that we're working with legislators on to try to optimize it, specifically around being really having some specific language relative to what the insurance companies' requirements and guidelines are relative to the arbitration process. But it's the best that we've gotten, I think, so far. And so if we can just continue to have them hold off on passing it right now while we kind of get those last minute tweaks in, I think we'll be in decent shape. I'm really grateful that I've been very much supported, actually, by my employer at GW and my chair in the department. And so I can't say that there's been any major conflicts. I think that communication is so important. And so before I even decided to run for the board the first time, we had a very long conversation about expectations on both sides. And we ironed out, I think, some potential concerns early, which I think was really helpful. But I think that my department realizes that my being on the board is actually helpful, really, for the department if I'm supported and if I really optimize my role on the board to bring opportunities, you know, to the department through committee work and the like. So yeah, no major conflicts to date, knock on wood. Changes. So I believe that in order to take the college to the next level and to really prepare ourselves, not just to be great advocates for emergency physicians, but also to provide excellent emergency care, which of course is our mission statement, we really have to embrace technology. And I think that we're already doing that to some degree, but it's gonna have to be ramped up. And I think we're gonna have to take make some really educated decisions and maybe even a little bit of risk to make sure that we have the proper infrastructure when it comes to being able to support health information technology in the way of promoting, for example, augmented intelligence and machine learning. I think that these tools are going to be just really very important for us in terms of taking the college to the next level, taking the specialty to the next level, improving patient care and the like. There's just so much that can be done through technology. And currently we just don't have the infrastructure technically to support those efforts. We are, however, having very diligent conversations about it. And in fact, this past summer had our first HIT summit, which was a really outstanding meeting consisting of multiple stakeholders, not just in medicine, but from various industries, talking about how ACEP can be at the forefront of innovation in terms of technology and the like. We're really lucky to have CEDAR, our registry, which has tons and tons of data. So CEDAR has actually captured, I think the latest numbers are 50 million emergency department visits, and 30 million of those visits are unique individual patients. And so the data is there, which is awesome. We have the data. We just now need to build the infrastructure around that data to be able to properly use it and really use that data to help us with things like machine learning and augmented intelligence and the like. I mean, and the other thing is we have to figure out how to better reach our members. We certainly recognize that there has been a dip in membership, actually, and it kind of fluctuates as the year goes along, but we really have to focus on how to better reach our members, and I feel that that might be done by way of technology in a lot of ways. Yep. I think leadership is going to be one really important key factor in terms of moving the college forward in that way. There has to be someone at the helm with a vision around where they want to see the organization go. And again, with the new executive director, Ms. Adori, she definitely has technology on her mind. A quarter of ACEP's products are quality related, and under the quality umbrella falls CEDAR. So a lot of investment has been made there already. So I think it's just up to us with the proper leadership and vision to continue to push the progress of creating the infrastructure that we need. Again, I think CEDAR creates a really nice fundamental platform to start from. And so that's helpful. And now we just have to continue to build upon that platform. And really, it was already a part of the plan for CEDAR from day one that it would be really a growing vehicle in increments. And so we always talked about using CEDAR for research purposes. We always talked about using CEDAR to inform national data registries in terms of emergency visits and the like. And so that's helpful because it was already a part of the plan. And so now we just have to take advantage of timing to really push it forward. I also think that I'm actually excited that our finance committee, as well as our CFO for ACEP, they've done a really good job during COVID in particular to fortify, the finances of the college. And of course, you can't create more infrastructure and move forward technically without money. And so we actually secured a $10 million line of credit for the college that doesn't have any penalties, no interest rate or anything like that. And so if we need to draw from those funds in the wake or during rather COVID, we certainly can. And I think that having access to those funds will hopefully help create some comfort in terms of moving forward with others. So I really think that the chapters are truly the heart and soul of the organization. When I ran for the board in 2017, one of my key platform topics was around chapter leadership and improved engagement between national ACEP and then chapters, and making sure that chapters have the resources that they need in order to thrive. And I will say that 3 years later, strides have been made, but there's still a huge opportunity, I think, to optimize that relationship between national and chapter. I think we have to realize that many policy initiatives that are most effective take place at the state level. For example, even just during COVID-19, about 16 different states passed some degree of medical liability just in the setting of COVID-19, and 8 other states already had some degree of like emergency medical liability provisions and the like. And so that's where it happens. That's how oftentimes progress is made. And I think it's really important for ACEP to embrace that fact, and to work very specifically and very intentionally with the leadership of each chapter, to make sure that their individual state needs are met and that they have the resources that they need. One of the challenges is that, you know, we have small chapters, we have big chapters. Chapters are in various places, obviously, geographically. And so we have to understand that it's not one size fits all, and make sure that we are creating a personalized approach for each chapter. But yeah, it's key, integral, no doubt about it. Chapter involvement and engagement. I'm in DC. Yeah, I'm a part of the DC chapter. Yeah, so I've learned, you know, that a lot can be accomplished even in small numbers. And I've also learned from the DC chapter experience that regional relationships are very, very important. So our relationship with Virginia, our relationship with Maryland is key, even Philadelphia, or rather Pennsylvania. You know, I was president of DC ACEP, I don't know what year it was, maybe 2015 or so, 2014, something like that. And when I started as president, you know, really the chapter wasn't very engaged, not very active. There weren't a lot of member benefit resources and the like. The budget was stagnant. And so I'm proud to say that at the end of my term, we had doubled the budget and increased membership by 50%. And so what it taught me is that you can do a lot with a little, as long as you have the right team. And so I was really fortunate to have a great executive director, as well as a great board. So yeah, that's one of the things I've learned from DC ACEP. And then also just being in DC, I mean, gosh, there's a huge benefit being located in the capital, in terms of relationships and resources.
Yeah.
I do, for sure. Like, there's so much I need to finish doing, you know. Everything takes forever to accomplish, it seems, you know, nothing happens overnight. And I appreciate, you know, Virginia and other states for, you know, investing time and energy into me as a board member and a first term board member. And so there's definitely things I need to finish up. I'm proud of the progress that I've made around really diversifying my skill set, in terms of quality. I was the board liaison to the quality committee and also board liaison to CEDAR now, and also board liaison to the QUIPS section, and just all things quality and CEDAR and quality measure and the like. And I will tell you, it was a huge, huge education for me. It's a complicated matter, quality measure development and the like. And I will say that the first 6 or 8 months, I was just bombarded with the alphabet soup of it all and just trying to understand the intricacies. And so I'm proud that today I feel really comfortable with understanding, you know, quality from the standpoint of emergency medicine and from the standpoint of federal legislation that requires quality and how it's looked at and graded and the like, and the process and whatnot. And I think that I would appreciate certainly the opportunity to continue that work, in terms of really putting ACEP in a great position to provide its members with the tools that it needs to be able to report their quality measures, make sure that their reimbursements are therefore adequate, and to take it to the next level. Because what I can tell you is that the requirements around quality aren't going anywhere. CMS is definitely moving forward with the MACRA and MIPS program and the like. I actually spoke at ACEP's reimbursement and coding conference, I guess February, maybe January, and talked a lot about the specifics, the nitty gritty around what CMS is looking for. And so we have a job to really educate ACEP members around this whole quality thing, how to do it and how to do it well, how to not be caught with our pants down, if you will, and not prepared really to respond to these federal mandates. And so that's one piece that I'm looking forward to continuing to work with CEDAR as well as the quality program at ACEP in that regard. Being in DC is helpful because I've been able to attend most of the CMS meetings that we've had with them over the past year. I've probably attended about 10 face-to-face meetings with CMS. And so I'm looking forward to continue to take advantage of even my geographic proximity.
Do you have any other questions for us?
I do, of course. I have a question for you all. I really sincerely want to know what I can do to assist the Virginia chapter. I would love to know what a priority is for your chapter for this coming year, that I might be able to think about and try to address more effectively than it has been perhaps addressed in the past.
No, I mean, I think as a chapter, we got our balance billing, surprise billing legislation through at the beginning of this year, which feels like forever ago, which is a really fair and well thought out model that our lobbyists and our team did a fantastic job on. We were a little surprised the governor signed a budget amendment that essentially allows retroactive downgrade of payments for any Medicaid patients to about $14 and some change if it's deemed that it could have been avoidable through better primary care. So like a DKA patient is on that list that you'll get paid $14 for. And so that's problematic on a number of fronts. You're basically penalizing emergency physicians for taking care of the problem at the end who have no control over the way the problem got there. Dr. Todd Parker has done a lot of research on this, and he's found that a number of states have tried something similar, and CMS has very quickly told them they cannot do that, that it violates the prudent layperson and a whole lot of other things. Right. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to use those examples from the other states and that this problem will hopefully be solved quickly, and that language will be struck and not put into practice. But that was one of our big concerns this year as a chapter.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that prudent layperson just kept coming to my mind as you were speaking, like, that's it. Harry Monroe, our state rep, ACEP state rep, has not representative in terms of Congress, but you know what I mean, staff member, works on all things state related and in terms of legislation. And so he would be another great resource, of course, in terms of getting the language of that legislation clarified, because I see it, I agree, it is surprising, and it seems like a glaring problem that.
Yeah, it was surprising. Our governor's a physician. We had spoken to him the day before. We thought he understood and this was not going to go through. And so we were a little caught off guard, but it seems like it's going to be a relatively simple thing to rectify. So we're working on that.
The other thing, just to mention, is that the work that we're doing at the federal level in terms of language relative to surprise billing, we're working, one of the tweaks that we're working really hard on is clarifying how median amounts are defined. And so you mentioned the $14 kind of threshold. And so my hope is that, the federal language will also help inform state language and serve as some degree of example.
Yeah, I think our state legislation, what we ended up with for the benchmark, it's a median. It's it's not a median. We did an average of payments from 2 calendar years. And then there's a built-in acceleration for inflation and things like that. And
right.
So we tried to pick a number nobody can mess with. This is what was paid both in and out of network. So we felt that was fair to physicians, and also insurers tried to say it wasn't fair to them, but it was fair. It's what they've paid before. There's no reason premiums should go up. It's what has been paid in the past. And so we were pretty happy with what went through on that. And then I think, me personally, what we've noticed in Virginia is some of the groups' responses to COVID has been different. ACEP has spoken on this a little bit, but I think as you talk about membership, particularly new grads, the biggest concern is what the market looks like right now for emergency physicians coming out to jobs and what their current jobs are looking at. I think there's a lot of concern as far as what's going to happen to benefits and payments in this setting of reduced volumes and how those decisions are being made.
Yeah.
So we scratched the surface a little bit in council last year when we passed the resolution to at least explore what the role of private equity has been and what the impact has been on our specialty. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts, as COVID has really brought a lot of that to the forefront of public attention through a lot of media articles regarding emergency medicine and private equity and things of that nature.
Sure, COVID has definitely magnified problems that have been issues for forever, and it's so it's a huge opportunity, I think, to ride the momentum of COVID and try to address some other issues that should have been addressed long ago. As you know, the private equity task force has been assembled, and so COVID has, of course, made sluggish a lot of operations, and so their work hasn't really gotten fully underway yet, but certainly the information relative to what we're hearing from members all across the country in terms of decreased pay, decreased hours, decreased benefits. In some instances, we're hearing that retirement benefits are even being taken away or not matched, and that's not something you can kind of retroactively address. And so major problem there. We did release a formal statement, a press release rather, talking about how we understand certainly that medicine won't be immune to the economic impact of COVID-19 like every other industry. But what we expect is there to be transparency in the decision-making process, and that if decisions are involved with the decision-making process, that if cuts are made, it's felt by everyone from the top down, right? And so even in the C-suite and the like. And so that's what a lot of the language in the statement speaks to. And we anticipate being able to really expound upon those thoughts again through the work of the private equity task force that is underway. But, you know, we are definitely encouraging members to reach out to us with various new situations that arise relative to these cuts in payment and the like, so that hopefully we can intervene and serve as an advocate. So since COVID-19 hit, we have adjusted our executive leadership operations such that we communicate more frequently and can then respond more quickly to concerns in a timely manner. And so at this point, we're actually, for about a month and a half, we were having weekly informal calls for the board. I say informal because technically, according to the bylaws, like we can't have a board meeting per se, just kind of out of sequence. But we have calls every week for a while, and then things kind of cooled off a little bit, and we've gone to every other week. And so the process is for topics to be discussed in that forum every week or every other week. We also communicate all the time, every day, all day via email, and also we have an app that we use to communicate. We recognize the delay, and that's when we made the change to meet more frequently in order to be able to respond. These topics are complicated oftentimes, and so we do prefer to have the entire board weigh in on how to approach it and sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get everyone's input. But also the executive committee, which consists of the president-elect, past president, and the chair, they also meet individually regularly and sometimes make decisions without the involvement of the rest of the board. We try to get as much information as we can on these topics before making a statement about it and then having to retract. And that can be a little bit challenging. So, for example, the physician in Washington State that was fired because he questioned the access to PPE that he had, questions loom like, well, was he fired by Team Health or was he fired by the hospital? And, and we made a statement about that situation as well, but we wanted to have an opportunity to kind of do a little bit of fact checking first. And I know that can sometimes create significant delay. And again, we recognize that and we put some things into place to try to address that. It's frustrating to me too. I can tell you that, like even like the PPE statements, that for a while we were updating the PPE statements in terms of what's required, what kind of PPE, who has to wear it, etc. I personally was quite frustrated by, there was sometimes it took a while to kind of get it updated and online and whatnot. And part of that also speaks to technology and making sure the website is being properly run and the like. So yeah, but very important point. And we did try to make some changes to be a little bit more facile. We would absolutely love for more members to join us for the meetings and get involved. And we certainly advertise the meetings. It's a set calendar way in advance. The agenda for those meetings, I believe, is publicized online as well. Correct me if I'm wrong if you haven't seen those agendas. But you know, the agendas are quite long, but certainly if you guys want to read all 2,000 pages, that's fair. But no, we definitely welcome engagement and participation. Interestingly, I think because of COVID-19 and everything is virtual now, and conference calls and Zoom calls and the like, I think engagement will actually increase, because for a lot of people, it's more convenient actually to call in or Zoom in rather than having to travel or whatever. Like right now, for example, I don't know what you guys have on from here down. You can have no pants on or what. It's just, it's a nice setup. It's super convenient, right? And so, I hope that for our June board meeting, which is, I guess, almost a month from now, we will have the highest number of participation ever by phone, folks calling in to see exactly what it is that we're doing and what we're talking about. There are going to be some really important topics discussed also at the June meeting relative to finances. We're going to improve our budget for the next year, which of course is significant and relative given COVID-19, and so really important content. But what I can do is I'll double check on that to see how we go about advertising those meetings and making sure that it's visible. Because again, the website piece is another animal, and like you just have to make sure that if it is advertised, that it's visible, that it's updated and the like. And so I'll definitely look into that though. It's a great point, Cameron.